Welcome to Deep Dive by the Quiet Footnote. Today, we're diving into a book that really flipped the script on healthy eating. It's Stephen R. Gundry's The Plant Paradox.
Yeah.
Seriously, forget what you thought you knew about your favorite vegetables, maybe even grains. Gundry's going to challenge pretty much all of it. He puts forward this really provocative idea that some of the very healthy foods we've been told are great for us, things like tomatoes, beans, even whole grains, might actually be, well, silently contributing to chronic illness. So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack this very contrarian view. We want to separate the real aha moments from the bits that make us go, and see how these ideas really stand up to scrutiny and how they resonate or maybe clash with how we understand health today.
It's definitely a compelling journey
Yeah.
because I think at its core, this book taps into something widespread, this kind of yearning for simple, clear answers, especially in, the world of health and nutrition, which often feels just overwhelmingly complex. It offers a very attractive narrative. It lays out a clear villain and then, boom, a straightforward path to feeling better.
Okay, so who is Dr. Stephen R. Gundry, the man behind this paradox? He's quite a figure. He was a distinguished heart surgeon, actually, who then famously pivoted his whole career to become more of a wellness evangelist. And his central thesis, it seems to stem from a really fundamental question: why, despite decades of healthy eating advice, focusing on whole grains, legumes, lots of fruits and vegetables, why are rates of obesity, autoimmune disease, diabetes just continuing to skyrocket?
It's a fair question to ask, isn't it?
Totally. And Gundry suggests, well, maybe some of the very foods we're told are healthiest are, in fact, silently harming us. He introduces the plant paradox itself. And the idea is basically that plants aren't just passive, benign things in our diet. Instead, he sees them as sophisticated survivalists, armed with chemical defenses, specifically proteins he calls lectins.
Right, and that's where the paradox really takes hold, I think. Gundry is essentially challenging that dominant narrative, the one that says plants are universally good for us. I mean, that's been a cornerstone of dietary advice for so long.
Yeah.
So by presenting lectins as these kind of covert saboteurs, he delivers a clear, identifiable villain. And then he offers us a direct blueprint for healing, which is appealing in a world where, frankly, many people feel lost trying to improve their health.
Okay, let's dig into the details then. Gundry's argument about lectins. He really casts them as these evolutionary booby traps. He explains them as like sticky plant proteins, part of the plant's survival toolkit designed to deter predators from eating them. And he theorizes that these proteins can bind to the cells lining our gut. And this binding, he argues, can interfere with nutrient absorption. It might even create these microscopic openings in the intestinal wall, which then makes it easier for larger, unwanted molecules to pass through, potentially triggering an immune response.
Inflammation.
Right? He points to specific examples, highlighting lectins found in common things like grains and legumes, suggesting our bodies might struggle to process them effectively. And to illustrate this, Gundry uses this incredibly vivid metaphor for the gut. He describes it as a fortress wall.
Yeah, that's a memorable one.
Totally. And he pictures lectins as these clever invaders breaching the gates. It's imagery that makes the whole abstract world of gut microbes and the intestinal barrier feel really visceral, really central to our health.
It is a powerful metaphor. And that concept, the gut as a fortress, it's absolutely central to his thinking. When Gundry talks about the holobiome, he's talking about more than just the gut, right? It's the whole ecosystem, all the microorganisms interacting with our body, influencing everything from immunity, even our mood. His point is that disrupting this delicate balance, say with things like lectins, can compromise that critical intestinal barrier,
Right.
leading to what people often call leaky gut.
And just quickly, for anyone wondering, when we say leaky gut, we're basically talking about a compromised intestinal lining. It lets stuff like undigested food particles, toxins, microbes leak into the bloodstream where they shouldn't be, and that can trigger systemic inflammation throughout the body.
Exactly.
But Gundry doesn't stop at lectins. He widens the lens, introducing what he calls the 7 deadly disruptors. These are other modern culprits that, in his view, undermine our gut health and kind of open the door for lectin damage. We're talking about things like, antibiotics, NSAIDs, artificial sweeteners, even the herbicide Roundup. And interestingly, blue light exposure from our screens. It's quite a comprehensive look at how modern living might be messing with our internal systems.
Okay, but this is where we really need to pause and add some crucial balance. While Gundry's message feels urgent, and it's clearly compelling for many people, it's important to say that many experts in fields like nutrition, gastroenterology, cardiology, have labeled his core claims as pseudoscience.
That's a strong word, pseudoscience.
It is. And they point to a significant lack of robust, controlled human studies to back up his main theories. They argue he relies heavily on anecdotal evidence, stories from patients, and sometimes misinterprets existing research. There are sources like science-based medicine, the skeptical cardiologist, that have voiced these concerns quite strongly.
Okay.
Now, this isn't to completely dismiss the basic idea of plant defensive. That part's real. What's fascinating here is, well, take raw kidney beans. They are indeed toxic because of their high lectin content. That's established science. But the vast majority of lectins are actually neutralized through common traditional cooking methods.
Like what kinds of methods?
We're talking about boiling, pressure cooking, soaking, fermenting.
Yeah.
These are culinary traditions. They've been understood and practiced for generations across so many cultures long before lectins became this kind of pop culture health topic.
Okay, so that raises a question then. When people follow his protocol and report these amazing results, these fiery results, as the book says, is it really just avoiding lectins? Or could something else be going on?
That is a critical question, absolutely. When individuals report significant health improvements on Gundry's protocol, it might actually be less about the lectin avoidance alone and maybe more about engaging what we could call classic healing levers. Think about it. These protocols often involve drastically cutting down on processed foods.
Right, that alone can make a huge difference.
Huge. Plus adopting more mindful eating habits, maybe incorporating some intermittent fasting. And typically, there's a reduction in overall calorie intake. These are all well-known factors that can profoundly improve health and reduce inflammation, regardless of a specific focus on lectins.
Gotcha. Okay, so this is where Gundry really pushes the envelope, isn't it? Challenging what many of us think of as dietary gospel. He really dares to stab at the sacred cows of modern nutrition, like challenging the very idea that plant equals pure good. He presents this, revolutionary thought. Maybe not all plants are innocent. He reframes foods we love, tomatoes, beans, lentils, quinoa, even whole grains, suggesting they might actually be subtle saboteurs.
And that's a really significant claim, isn't it? Given how deeply ingrained the idea of universally healthy plants is in all the dietary guidelines. It's definitely iconoclastic. It grabs your attention.
Exactly. And his claims don't stop there. He takes it further with whole grains, making this audacious claim that they're Trojan horses of inflammation. I mean, that directly questions decades of dietary guidelines that have championed whole grains. He even goes after fruit, arguing that fruit, especially the kind we get year-round now, is essentially candy in disguise.
Candy disguise.
Yeah, a seasonal fuel for fat storage, he calls it, not just a harmless vitamin source.
That kind of dramatic inversion of conventional wisdom, it really taps into a cultural hunger, I think. A hunger for a clear explanation, maybe even a villain, for why so many people are struggling with their health. If things like grains and fruit, often seen as pillars of health, are suddenly the problem, well, that shifts the entire narrative, doesn't it?
It really does. And he also fundamentally shifts our perspective on meat, emphasizing its quality based on what the animal ate. He's a strong advocate for grass-fed, pasture-raised proteins, famously stating, "You are what you eat."
And what it ate.
Exactly. And maybe his most compassionate claim, and arguably one of the most impactful, is how he reframes obesity. He says, quote, "Obesity is not your fault. Fat is your body's response to inflammation."
That just swaps shame for compassion, right? Reframing weight gain is a biological survival strategy.
That reframing of obesity is a profound psychological move. It really is. It removes that moralistic blame people carry and offers a path to understanding the body as trying to be protective. That's incredibly empowering for a lot of people. Yeah, I can see that. And finally, he elevates food preparation almost to the level of medicine, highlighting how traditional methods, pressure cooking, fermenting, peeling, deseeding, aren't just quaint culinary practices. He says they are, in fact, essential detox practices to neutralize these plant toxins, practices that modern convenience has maybe made us forget.
So if we zoom out a bit, what Gundry does here is he plays the iconoclast, right? He's swinging at the very foundations of the food pyramid. But here's the twist, or maybe the caution. In trying to debunk these long-held myths, there's always a risk of creating new ones, like the sort of blanket idea that lectins are universally harmful. It's important to remember, I think, that our relationship with nourishment should probably be more nuanced, like a dance with food, not necessarily a wrestling match against it.
So, okay, what does this all mean for us right now, today? Gundry wrote The Plant Paradox in a world already grappling with chronic illness. But today, those chronic disease rates are arguably even higher. It makes his warnings about inflammation and maybe lectins as silent accelerants seem, well, increasingly relevant, maybe even prophetic to some.
What's fascinating is how his sense of urgency comes from that exact paradox you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
We are arguably more health conscious than ever before, right? People talk about wellness constantly, yet chronic illness rates persist, and in many cases, they seem to be worsening. That tension, that gap, it gives his message fresh teeth, makes it highly compelling for a public searching for answers.
And think about the shift just in mainstream health discussions. When Gundry first started talking about things like leaky gut and the
It
microbiome,
was pretty fringe back then.
definitely sounded a bit out there. But now, gut health is like a mainstream mantra. It's in almost every health conversation you hear. And Gundry would likely argue that, hey, the lectin piece is the missing puzzle everyone's ignoring in this whole gut health conversation. Also, think about the other things he warned about. The pervasiveness of industrial farming, GMOs, chemical herbicides like Roundup, and those 7 deadly disruptors, more screen time, blue light, artificial sweeteners, they've only intensified, haven't they? This makes his call for a kind of defensive eating feel even sharper, maybe more urgent than when the book first came out. And ironically, right, as plant-based eating trends just explode, Gundry's contrarian voice actually rings even louder. He warns that many of these new frankenfoods, the highly processed meat alternatives, while they cut out meat, they might actually be lectin and chemical cocktails disguised as health food. It's a really stark counter-narrative to the whole plant-based boom, urging us to look beyond just the simple labels.
And this brings up a critical point, I think, about the information landscape we're all trying to navigate. In our world, where we're constantly seeking clarity and fighting off information overload, Gundry delivers a very simple blueprint, which is appealing. However, we, as critical thinkers, you listening right now, must always evaluate if the market for that clarity, if it might sometimes outpace the actual scientific evidence for its accuracy. It's a powerful lesson, really, in navigating health information, especially when it challenges so many established beliefs so strongly.
So moving beyond just the specific diet rules, what is Gundry really telling us underneath it all? At its core, there seems to be this underlying message, something like, you've been lied to, and hey, it's not your fault. He suggests the system, maybe the food pyramids, the health authorities inadvertently misled us. And for the reader, that can offer a powerful sense of relief and maybe even agency.
Yeah, that sense of validating the individual's struggle and shifting the blame away from personal failings or lack of willpower, that's incredibly powerful. It probably explains a lot of the book's psychological appeal. It's offering not just a diet, but a whole narrative of understanding why you might feel the way you do.
He's also issuing this profound call to action, isn't he? Implying that modern life is just drastically out of sync with ancient wisdom. He's essentially saying we've abandoned ancestral wisdom for convenience and urging a return to reverence for things like preparation, patience, seasonality, and our food choices.
A return to tradition, in a way.
Exactly. And here's what feels like a truly radical undertone. The idea that your body is not your enemy. Gundry reframes fat as armor, inflammation as defense. Yeah. He's kind of whispering that your body is trying to protect you, not sabotage you. And that's a message that helps swap that self-blame for compassion. It leads to a much more empathetic view of our own health struggles, perhaps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what Gundry taps into, I think, beyond the specifics of lectins, is this profound human desire for meaning and control in our health journey. He plants suspicion where there was often just blind faith, maybe unconventional advice, and that gives people permission to question, which in itself is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, despite maybe a surface-level fear about certain foods, the book ultimately seems to offer agency as the real gift. It's an empowering message. Your kitchen is your medicine cabinet, your fork is your scalpel, suggesting you have the power to heal yourself through mindful, informed choices. And finally, maybe the true paradox isn't just about plants. Maybe it's about us. The human paradox of constantly outsourcing our instincts, and inadvertently sabotaging our longevity with the allure of convenience.
You could say the unheard message beneath Gundry's whole lectin lecture is almost spiritual. It's like, you are not flawed. You are simply misaligned. Your body is actually wiser than the systems that might have taught you to mistrust it. So the path forward, then, isn't necessarily fear, but maybe a return to listening, really listening to your own body.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack. Let's try and quickly summarize Gundry's top 5 key insights he hopes you, the listener, internalize from the plant paradox. Ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Number 1. Not all healthy plants are safe.
Yeah.
Plants protect themselves with lectins. These proteins that, he argues, can slip past your gut wall, cause inflammation, and trigger disease. Think tomatoes, beans, lentils, whole grains. Some fruits might be culprits.
Number 2, your gut is the true battlefield. Health and disease, he says, both begin with the microbiome. A leaky gut, that compromised intestinal wall, is ground zero for autoimmune conditions, obesity, chronic illness. So protect that gut barrier like a fortress.
Number 3. Obesity and illness aren't moral feelings, they're survival responses. Weight gain, fatigue, inflammation. These are your body's defense against constant attack, not laziness or lack of willpower. Heal the gut, he suggests, and the body can drop its armor.
Number 4, food quality matters more than just calories. You're not just what you eat, you're what your food ate. So grain-fed animal products, pesticide-sprayed produce, ultra-processed foods, they all deliver inflammatory baggage. Grass-fed, organic, traditionally prepared foods, they reduce this burden.
And number 5. Ancient food wisdom has modern scientific roots. Those traditional methods, fermenting, pressure cooking, peeling, deseeding, seasonal eating, they weren't just quaint rituals. He argues they were survival strategies against plant toxins. And modern convenience stripped this wisdom away, maybe to our detriment. Phew. Okay, so what does this all mean for you listening in one sharp sentence? The plant paradox argues that many supposedly healthy plant foods are laced with hidden toxins called lectins, and that true healing and vitality come from protecting the gut, avoiding disruptive foods, and reclaiming ancient food wisdom to silence inflammation at its root. That's the core argument. Now, for you, the most impactful part of this deep dive might be less about the precise data, which we've seen is debated, and more about the profound psychological effect. This book definitely shakes you awake. So our advice, take what truly resonates with you. Maybe it's the gut-focused lens, maybe it's the power of thoughtful food preparation, or simply the invitation to question established wisdom. But always, always make sure to leave the fear behind. Don't let it drive your choices.
Yeah, and this brings us to a really crucial question, doesn't it? How do you nurture a relationship with food that's curious, forgiving, rhythmic, not strict or punitive? Don't just blindly trust slogans, whether from Gundry or anyone else. Listen deeper, question louder, and try to treat your body less like an enemy you have to conquer and more like an ally you need to understand. In this world that's just overflowing with conflicting health information, maybe the most revolutionary act is actually to embrace a kind of measured skepticism, to be able to say, okay, this approach might help some people, but maybe not all, and to always seek balance over drastic elimination. That feels like a healthier path forward.